All right, Shalom. I want to begin by giving all glory and praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. All right, double honors to our beloved elders and apostles of great millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect, and Shalom to all the Akim pushing his truth with sincerity. It's the brother Itazawan from the GMS Columbus, Ohio branch, coming back again with another quick hit video through the Spirit. Just through the Spirit, been pushing out these quick hit videos this week. Just quick and straight to the point, But, something that's been on my mind lately, all right, is being more serious-minded, and, all these things, that I'm speaking, will speak, is first and foremost directed to myself, things that, my spirit has been telling me, all right, and not, that Jake doesn't, show these traits, but, just, amplifying them, concerning the times, concerning, what's happening in the earth, again, as brothers and sisters who want to know, we're entering into the Passover, all right, phase of the year, the beginning of the year, so, just being more serious-minded and, stoic. All right, but real quick, I want to look up the word serious. Or let me see, seriously, and a serious peril, serious thought of application. Let's look up both. Just see what we get. Arranged in sequence, continuous, of persons expressing earnest purpose or thought, result, grave, earnest. Let's look up this word. Let me see, weighty, important, grave, slow, heavy. Let's look up this word earnest real quick. Serious or grave in speech or action. All right, zealous, serious, seriousness, serious intent. All right, yeah, these are good. Being in an earnest spirit, in a stoic spirit. You know what I'm saying? Again, just applying. All right, a more austere, mindset. In the sense of, how Jake is moving, what Jake is into, so on and so forth. Not, being in too much folly, being in an immersed spirit, which leads me to, this is Ecclesiastes 7 and 2. It reads, "It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart." Right? So it is better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting. Okay? When you enter into the house of mourning, you're in a more serious state, a more stoic state. Okay? Just like you. All right, and when you're in the house of feasting, you're in a mirthful state, joy, which, if you overindulge, those things can hinder you. All right, especially being in this truth. Verses 3, it says, "Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance, the heart is made better," right? Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance, the heart is made better, right? And why is that? Again, because you're in a more serious, stoic mind, which in that breeds forth what? You growing, all right? You're growing in your spirit, you see? Fortifying your mind, all right? Ooh, Salakia, okay? Let's get verses 4. It says, "The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth," right? And that's pretty much the point. And, this pretty much is going to be a one-hitter quitter, through the spirit. Reading verse 4 one more time. It says, "The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. Let's look at this word mirth. Because, mirth isn't a bad thing, all right? Joy, mirth, gladness. Mirth, gladness, joy, gaiety, or gaiety. All right? Rejoicing, which, like I said, isn't a bad thing, okay? But, when you're in that state, all right, especially, like I said, concerning the times, it's like it. Shoot, it's time for bed. But again, like I said, concerning the times, it's vital, that we enter into the house of mourning, because like I said, again, put you in a more serious stoic mind, all right? Where you're locked in. It's all about being locked in. And, I've been talking to various brothers, and that's something that's been coming up, a lot lately is, brothers speaking about being locked in. All right. And we all know what, being locked in means, in a sense, in the world, saying you're locked in, meaning you're focused. Okay. Let's look up the word focus real quick. Focus. Point of convergency, hearth, fireplace, figuratively home, family. Which I don't know for so taken by Kelper, mathematic point of convergence. Or let me see, focused. If they, let me see. They're gonna give me some more. Give me what I want. Right, what y'all see, they looking at it or defining it in I want to say a scientific state or a mathematical state. Let's do this. Focused. It says describe someone or something paying close, sustained attention to a specific task, aim or object, often with clear, narrow purpose, right? And our clear, narrow purpose is what, ultimately, first and foremost, Lord willing, receiving salvation and, the kingdom of heaven. All right. So in that, what? You have to shift your mind to be in a more serious, a more stoic, for us men, a more stoic mind. All right. That you stay locked in and focused. All right. On the task at hand. All right. And again, being in the house of mourning is what helps you, or sways your spirit to move in like manner. All right. If you're in the house of mirth, you're not focused, you enjoying yourself, you having fun, you lax, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got no worries, you know what I'm saying, so to speak, you partying, you in a pleasurable state, all right, where your mind is scrambled, you in a state of, ecstasy, so to speak, okay? So again, just concerning the times and, just, all in all growing, like I said, first and foremost to myself, but as men in this ministry, it's better that we stay in the house of mourning, and again, apply a more stoic and, serious mind, to our lives, man, more so now than ever. All right. Like I said, I know brothers harness these things already, you know what I'm saying? But just a reminder, okay, that we come in that spirit, man, but that's it. Like I said, just quick and straight to the point real quick. I want to look up this word stoic as well, how they queued up. Stoic is his philosophers of the school founded. All right, I'm just going into some of the history, but I went down. Or stoical, I believe. Let me see. Or is it in this? Stoic. Okay, it's in the second paragraph. If you can see it. And like I said, this all ties into that house of mourning as well. It's only old English like it has stoic C's plural. This is the general meaning, person not easily excited, or like the scripture say, a righteous man. Real quick. Just scarce. If I spelled that right. Okay, kind. This is no. Scarce. There's a smile a little. Real quick, this is Sirach 21:20. It says, a fool lifteth up his voice with laughter, but a wise man doeth scarce smile a little. See, in the house of mourning. Again, serious-minded, not with all the games and the foolery, the folly, all right, so on and so forth. But it says a person not easily excited, person who represses feelings or endures patiently is recorded by 1570s, all right? Represses feelings, being numb. It's another one that I was looking at. Let me see. Why has it got me on this ad note shit? Another one. I think I'm gonna read it. There's another point here. Okay, here, I like this. Characterized by austere ethical doctrines. All right. I like that. Pertaining to, what's it like it? Characterized by austere ethical doctrines. I want to see if I could look all this up real quick. Just want to see. See what it says, what it gives me. Austere ethical doctrines emphasizes strict self-control, simplicity, and the subordination of personal desire to duty or virtue, often rejecting luxury and material accumulation. Key examples include stoicism. See, again, interesting to the house of mirth, or like into the house of mourning. Not being in the house of mirth. All right, worrying about the wrong things, being in a more serious mind. Okay, so on and so forth. All right. So that was beautiful. Beautiful. It's all linked up very well. But again, like I said, quick and straight to the point. All right. Lord's will. This was edifying to whoever may receive it. Giving all glory and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim.